and welcome back to Friday Reads, where we help you find your next read. I'm Jill.
And I'm Julie, and this week we've got kind of a fun one for you. We got a new computer system a year ago, so I ran a report of our adult fiction books that didn't circulate since we got the new computer system. So these books haven't moved off the shelf in a year, so we want to hear from you. Should we keep these books, or should we set them free and move them on to the next thing? So I'm going to kick it off to Jill, see what she's got.
All right. So my first choice here is Faithful by Alice Hoffman. This was published in 2016. Alice Hoffman is the New York Times bestselling author of The Marriage of Opposites and Practical Magic. And this book hasn't circulated in a year. Growing up on Long Island, Shelby Richmond is an ordinary girl until one night an extraordinary tragedy changes her fate. Her best friend's future is destroyed in an accident, while Shelby walks away with the burden of guilt. What happens when a life is turned inside out, when love is something so distant it may as well be a star in the sky? Faithful is the story of a survivor filled with emotion, from dark suffering to true happiness, a moving portrait of a young woman finding her way in the modern world. A fan of Chinese food, dogs, bookstores, and men she should stay away from. Shelby has to fight her way back to her own future. In New York City, she finds a circle of lost and found souls, including an angel who's been watching over her ever since that fateful, icy night. This is a character you're going to fall in love with. Very believable and real and endearing, and she captures both the ache and the loneliness and the joy of finding yourself at last. For anyone who's ever been a hurt teenager, for every mother of a daughter who has lost her way, Faithful is a roadmap. So let us know if we should keep it or set it free.
And my first pick for today is called The Other Mrs. Miller by Allison Dixon. This was published in 2019. Two women are watching each other. Phoebe Miller isn't sure when the rusty car started showing up in the cul-de-sac she calls home, or why its driver would be spying on her. What could be so interesting about an unhappy housewife who drowns her sorrows in ice cream and wine and barely leaves the house? Only one person knows why. When a new family moves in across the street, the exuberant Vicky, who just might become the gossipy best friend Phoebe's always wanted, and her handsome college-bound son Jake, who offers companionship of a different variety, Phoebe now finds her dull routine infused with the excitement that she's been missing. But with her head turned, she's no longer focused on the woman in the car. And that's where she really should be focused. It's an addictive domestic thriller for fans of The Last Mrs. Parrish and The Couple Next Door. The Other Mrs. Miller serves up a delicious brew of dark secrets and stunning plot twists that will keep you captivated until the very last page. So keep or set it free.
My next one is Lights All Night Long by Lydia Fitzpatrick. This was published in 2019, and it is a debut novel for this young writer. 15-year-old Ilya arrives in Louisiana from his native Russia for what should be an adventure of his life, a year in America as an exchange student. But all is not right in Ilya's world. He's consumed by the fate of his older brother Vladimir, the magnetic rebel to Ilya's dutiful wonderkind. Back in their tiny Russian hometown, the two have always been close, spending their days dreaming of escaping to America. But when Ilya was tapped for the exchange, Vladimir disappeared into his own town's seedy, drug-plagued underworld. Just before Ilya left, the murders of 3 young women rocked the town's usual calm, and Vladimir found himself in prison. With the help of Sadie, who has secrets of her own, Ilya embarks on a mission to prove Vladimir's innocence. Piecing together the timeline of the murders and Vladimir's descent into addiction, Ilya discovers the radical lengths to which Vladimir has gone to protect him, a truth he could only have learned from leaving him behind. A rich tale of belonging and the pull of homes, both native and adopted. Lights All Night Long is a spellbinding story of the fierce bond between brothers determined to find their way back to each other. So keep or toss this brother tale.
My second pick is Behold the Dreamers by Mbola Boy, published in 2016. This was her debut novel, and it was also an Oprah book club pick. In this story, a Cameroonian immigrant living in Harlem has come to the U.S. to provide a better life for himself, his wife, and their 6-year-old son. In the fall of 2007, he can hardly believe his luck when he lands a job as a chauffeur for Clark Edwards, a senior executive at Lehman Brothers. Clark Edwards demands punctuality, discretion, and loyalty, and Jende is eager to please. Clark's wife Cindy even offers Nenny, who is Jenday's wife, temporary work at the Edwards' summer home in the Hamptons. With these opportunities, they feel like they can at last gain a foothold in America and imagine a brighter future. However, the world of great power and privilege conceals troubling secrets, and soon Jenday and Nenny notice cracks in their employers' facades. When the financial world is rocked by the collapse of Lehman Brothers, the Jangas are desperate to keep their jobs, even as their marriage threatens to fall apart. As all four lives are dramatically upended, Jenday and Nenny are forced to make an impossible choice. This book paints a vibrant dual portrait of two cultures and two marriages. The author has created unforgettable characters whose desires, sorrows, and joys ring true. This book explores issues of marriage, class, and race while exposing the trapdoors in the American dream. So, behold The Dreamers, a debut novel. Keep her set free.
My next choice is The Liar's Girl by Catherine Ryan Howard. This was published in 2018. Will Hurley is an attractive, charming, and impressive student at Dublin's elite St. John's College, Ireland's most prolific serial killer. This is awesome. Having stalked his 4 young victims, he drowned them in the muddy waters of the Grand Canal. Sentenced to life imprisonment when he was just 19, Will is locked away in the city's central psychiatric hospital. Freshman Allison Smith moved to Big Smoke to enroll in St. John's and soon fell hard for Will Hurley. Her world bloomed and then imploded when Liz, her best friend, became the latest victim of the Canal Killer. And the Canal Killer turned out to be the boy who'd been sleeping in her bed. Allison fled to the Netherlands and in 10 years has never looked back. When the young woman's body is found in the Grand Canal, Garda detectives visit Will to see if he can assist them in solving what looks like copycat killing. Instead, Will tells him he has something new to confess, but there's only one person he's prepared to confess it to. The last thing Allison wants is to be pulled back into a past she's worked so hard to leave behind. Reluctantly, she returns to the city she hasn't set foot in for more than a decade to face the man who murdered the woman who she was supposed to become. Only to discover that until now, well, Will has left out the worst part of it all. So something even worse than being a serial killer. The Liar's Girl. Keep her set free.
Wow, a lot going on in that one.
I'd say.
My third pick is The Travelers by Regina Porter. This was published back in 2019. Meet James Samuel Vincent, an affluent Manhattan attorney who shirks his modest Irish-American background but hews to his father's meandering ways. James muddles through a topsy-turvy relationship with his son Rufus, which is further complicated when Rufus marries Claudia Christie. Claudia's mother, Agnes Miller Christie, is a beautiful African-American woman who survives a chance encounter on a Georgia road that propels her into a new life in the Bronx. Soon after, her husband, Eddie Christie, is called to duty on an aircraft carrier in Vietnam. He's grappling with mounting racial tensions on the ship and counts the days until he will see Agnes again. These unforgettable characters' lives intersect with a cast of lovers and friends. The unapologetic black lesbian who finds her groove in 1970s Berlin, a moving man stranded in Portsmouth, New Hampshire during a Thanksgiving storm, 2 half-brothers who meet as adults in a crayon factory, and Coney Island waitress whose Prince Charming is just too good to be true. With piercing humor, exacting dialogue, and a beautiful sense of pace, Regina Porter's debut novel is an intimate family portrait and a sweeping exploration of what it means to be in American today. So The Travelers. Sounds like an interesting group cast of characters in this one.
Then my next one is Little Romance. Courting Mr. Emerson by Melody Carlson. This was published in 2019 and has a 4-star rating on Goodreads, so readers are a fan of it. When the fun-loving and spontaneous artist Willow West meets buttoned-up retired English teacher George Emerson, it's not exactly love at first sight. Though she does find the obsessive-compulsive man intriguing, making it her mission to get him to loosen up and embrace life, she embarks on what seems like a lost cause and finds herself falling for him in the process. A confirmed bachelor, George vacillates between irritation and attraction whenever Willow is around, which is to him seems like all too often. He's not interested in expanding his horizons or making new friends. It just hurts too much when you lose them. But as summer progresses, George feels his defenses crumbling, and the question is, will his change of heart be too late for Willow? With her signature heart and touches of humor, fan favorite Melody Carlson pens the story of 2 delightfully eccentric characters who get a second chance at life and love. So you going to give this one a second chance or not? Keep or move on.
My fourth pick is probably a familiar author to some. It's Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter, published in 2018. In this book, Andrea Oliver's mother, Laura, is the perfect small-town mom. She lives a quiet but happy life in sleepy beachside Belle Isle. She's a pillar of the community, a speech therapist, business owner, and she's everybody's friend. And she's never kept a secret from anyone, or so Andrea thinks. When Andrea is caught in a random violent attack at a shopping mall, Laura intervenes and acts in a way that is completely unrecognizable to her daughter. It's like Laura is a completely different person, and that's because she was 30 years ago, before Andrea, before Belle Isle. Laura's hailed as a hero for her actions at the mall, but 24 hours later, she is in hospital, shot by an intruder who spent decades trying to track her down. So in this book, what is Andrea's mother trying to hide? As elements of the past return and put them both in danger, Andrea is left to piece all of this together. Is the gentle, loving woman who raised her also a violent killer? When I read reviews of this book, some felt it was not as gritty and graphic as her other books, and others loved it because it wasn't. So you decide. Keep or set it free.
My next one is called The Grace Kelly Dress. This was published in 2020, and sadly, it may have never left our library shelves because it hasn't been checked out in a year. It's about one dress and 3 generations. In Paris, 1958, Grace Kelly's royal wedding dress is still all the rage in fashion circles. Rose, a seamstress at a famous atelier, has been entrusted with sewing another gown in its image. An orphan, she needs her job to survive. But when Rose finds herself in love with the bride's handsome brother, she must decide what matters most, love or security. 60 years later, Rocky is thrilled to be marrying the love of her life. He truly is her perfect fit, but there's just one problem. Her family's heirloom wedding dress isn't. Rocky knows this admission will break her mother's heart. What she doesn't know is why her mother is so set on the dress, or about the shocking secret that changed her mother's life decades before, as she prepared to wear the dress herself. As the wedding day approaches, the mother-daughter pair will finally confront long-buried heartaches, and it might be just the dress that brings them closer than ever. So, life-affirming, heart-warming, and timeless, Brenda Janowitz' The Grace Kelly Dress is about the importance of tradition, new and old, and the power of a dress to fulfill even the most impossible of dreams. So, keep or move on.
I actually read that book.
It did leave the shelf.
I did. Well, might have been just me, and I enjoyed it, so... Private Life is my last pick by Jane Smiley. This is an older one. This was published in 2010. Back then, it was a riveting novel from the Pulitzer Prize winner that traverses the intimate landscape of one woman's life from the 1880s to World War II. Margaret Mayfield is nearly an old maid at 27 in post-Civil War Missouri when she marries Captain Andrew Jackson Jefferson Early. That's a mouthful. He's the most famous man their small town has ever produced. He's a naval officer and a brilliant astronomer, a genius who, according to the local paper, has changed the universe. Margaret's mother calls the match a piece of luck. Margaret is a good girl who has been raised to marry, yet Andrew confounds her expectations from the moment their train leaves for his naval base in faraway California. Soon she comes to understand that his devotion to science leaves precious little room for anything or anyone else. When personal tragedies strike and when national crises envelop the country, Margaret stands by her husband. But as World War II approaches, Andrew's obsessions take a different, darker turn, and Margaret is forced to reconsider the life that she has so carefully constructed. Private Life is a beautiful story of a woman's inner world, of the little girl within the hopeful bride, of the young woman filled with yearning, of the faithful wife who comes to harbor a dangerous secret. But it's also a heartbreaking portrait of marriage and the mysteries that endure even in lives lived side by side. It's a wonderfully evocative historical panorama, and above all, Jane Smiley's book is a masterly, unforgettable novel from one of our finest storytellers. Like I said, she's a Pulitzer Prize winner, so keep Private Life or set it free.
Well, thanks for watching. If you've read any of these books, please comment below of these books and let us know, even if you haven't read them, whether you think we should keep them or move on to another life outside of the library.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Next week, we will finish out the Dewey Decimal System. We'll be in the 900s, and that'll wrap up the Deweys, and then we'll have to pick another fun topic to do so. Hope to hear from you. Comment on this week's video about keeping or setting our books free. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.